Good morning, everybody. We are in parashat Beshlach. Parashat Beshlach, we are after the 10 plagues and Am Yisrael getting out of Egypt. And here in our parasha, we have a few very interesting things. We have Shirat Hayam, after the Am Yisrael went into the ocean and separated, and they walked on the land inside the sea. And then the Egyptian went chasing them, and they drowned. And on this big miracle, we have Shirat Hayam, the song of the sea, Shirat Hayam. So it is also called the Shabbos, Shabbat Shira. And with this all, we have also Parashat Haman. Parashat Haman is the manna that they got Am Yisrael from heaven every day. So it starts with complaints, what will we eat? And then God sent them the man. And by the way, there is a sgula, they say today, which is Tuesday, twice kitov, pa'amayim kitov. There is a sgula to say Parashat Haman, shtayim mikra v'achad targum, which means twice what's written in the Torah, like the Hebrew letters, and then the Targum, it's not exactly Targum, translation of Onkelos, and that's a sgula for Parnasah. But as I said a few times, people don't realize it. They think that they read it, and that's the sgula for Parnasah. People may put it on cloth and do a lot of things for sgula. If you say somebody, this is good for Parnasah, they will do it. The point is that people don't realize it's not reading it, it's understanding it and believing in it. And this is also, everything is a matter of belief. It's written, Vayihi Beshlach Paro. And the question is really, did Pharaoh send Am Yisrael out, or did God send Am Yisrael out? So why is it written, Vayihi Beshlach Paro? And then it's written, Vayihi, it's written, Vayihi Beshlach Paro. When Pharaoh sent Am Yisrael,
I would never walk.
The daughter found it at night with his wedge between the sheet and the door.
Sorry. I did mute. If you want to talk, you just unmute it and talk. So here we see an interesting thing. It's written like Pharaoh sent the people, Am Yisrael, and then later on we see that he decided to chase Am Yisrael after all was happening, after all the plagues he got and all the problems he had, realizing that God is the only one with nothing else but God. He still chases Am Yisrael. Is he crazy? Is he a Mashiganer? But the thing is that he was thinking that he is God, and unfortunately, sometimes in life, you start believing in what you think. You say, yeah, I am. Eventually, he thought he is God. Now, he thought, if God said, I want to go, I want to take my people for 3 days out in the desert that they can sacrifice, bring offers to me. It says, it's either God is joking with me, and he is limited, so he cannot really take Am Yisrael out of Egypt. So he's playing a game, and he's saying 3 days. And then when I let them to go for 3 days, they will run away. And this is, he was thinking in the beginning of when he got the plagues, and then his slaves came to him, Avdei Paro, and all the wise people came to him, Pharaoh, you don't see that we don't see that God is almighty, he's got all the powers of the world. Look what's happening. So he says, you know what, we'll do another test. So he's asking Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron coming back, and he tells them, okay, you can go. Who is going? So he says, what do you mean who is going? Everybody's going. The men, the women, the children. So 1 minute. What does it mean? If you really want to go for 3 days to worship God, so who is going? The men. You want everybody? So I am right. God is limited, and I will fight him till my last drop of blood. He says, I'm going to win this eventually. It's going to hurt, but I'm going to win it. But then, when he got Bakat Bechorot, he realizes that God is unlimited. So he sends Am Yisrael away. But still, he thinks that maybe really God wants only 3 days in the desert, and they will come back. And now he sends spies with Am Yisrael. They're going out from Egypt. And then he realizes they're coming back and telling him they've got no intention to come back. So he says, so maybe I am right. God is limited. So he is chasing Am Yisrael. What is all this game? All this game is just showing us that the Pharaoh inside us is so strong sometimes that even though we will see miracles, we will feel that God is here and is there. But if we want something, this Pharaoh inside us will convince us that we can achieve it, that we can do it, and it's okay. We can make it. This is Pharaoh. Now, Pharaoh, he wasn't a stupid guy. So if God is asking me for 3 days and then they don't come back, it means that something is wrong here. Because otherwise he would ask me, send my people, let my people go, and that's it, with no limits, 3 days or whatever. What he didn't know is that God is working midah keneged midah. What you do, you're going to get back. In other words, for example, why do they drown in the sea? Because what was one of the first things that Pharaoh did, says every child that is born in Am Yisrael will be thrown into the river. So he drowned the children of Israel. So God told him, now I'm going to drown you. The same thing is, he played games with the Am Yisrael. He didn't like start in one thing, like he said, okay, you are now slaves. No, he told them, we need to do some work. You will be the inspectors. You will make sure that the work is being done. You're going to get slaves. They're going to do the work. And then suddenly, by surely, every day, there was a few workers missing, and you had to do the job. So the inspector was helping doing it. Eventually, he finds himself that he is the only one that is doing the job, and all the workers left, all the slaves left. And then he got somebody in charge on him, and he became the slave. So God told him, you want to play games? I play a game with you. So I let you to have this small doubt, and you will pray around till you will destroy all Egypt by yourself. It's going to be yours. You're doing. And this is why we see all this way that is 10 plagues, and then he's still chasing Am Yisrael. And why did he chase Am Yisrael? Because let's not forget, when they went out of Egypt, they took a lot of money and things from the Egyptians. So now we're starting thinking, we thought it's for 3 days, but now we understand they're not going to come back, so we lost all the money and everything. So we're going to chase them. And then God has got a short way to take Am Yisrael out of Egypt. And this short way is through Eretz Plishtim. But God is not taking them through there, because it's close. They will see a war and they will go back to Egypt. What does it mean? What war? After all those miracles, they're going to be afraid of a war? And what does it mean, close? What is close? What does it mean, close? If you remember, also last parasha we had something similar. It says that when you bring the sacrifice of the Korban Pesach, you are not enough people to eat it, so you will take Shecheno Akarov Lebeto, the neighbor that lives near you. And what does it mean? A neighbor always lives near you. Otherwise, it's not your neighbor. But as we explained, doesn't mean the physical home. It's not the building. It's the spirit. It's the Jewish home. In other words, it can be a neighbor physically near you, but not near you with your ideas, with your belief. So this is not the neighbor we're talking about. We're talking about the neighbor that is near you in your belief, believes in God. And he is the same thing, but the opposite. What was the problem of Am Yisrael? They were for 200 years there with the Egyptian, more than 200 years. And they mingled with them. And we have this problem all over the world. And every time that the Jews try to be a part of the general society of the Gentiles, of the Goyim, problem starts. And this is why all the problem of the slavery in Egypt started, because they were instead staying in their place in Goshen, in their ghetto, and living their life. They wanted to be a part of the Egyptian society. And eventually that's what happened, that they become a part of the, let's say, the Egyptian society, and they become idol worshippers. And Hamushim Yatsui, said the parasha. So what he's doing now, he doesn't want them to be influenced from the idol worshippers in the land of the Plishtim, because they are also idol worshippers. And if Am Israel that just now left Egypt are going to go and again being in front of idol worshippers and all other nasty things, they're going to be influenced because it's close to their ideas. Because with all due respect, the 20% that went out of Egypt, as written in the next pasuk, the Chamushim Yatsu, Chamushim, Echad Mechamesh, 1 of 5. 20% only went out of Egypt and 80% stayed there. They were killed in the plague of darkness. And the question is, were all those 20% saints, tzaddikim? Definitely not. We see that one of the Micha is going there with a statue, with an idol. And then we see, and when they come to the sea, the angels telling God, you want to save Am Israel. Why? The Egyptians are idol worshippers, and also the Israelis are idol worshippers. So why do you save Am Israel? In other words, we realize that even though most of the people who believed in the idols stayed in Egypt, a part of them went out. With Am Israel, by the way, also the Arab Rab. Not everybody was the children of Israel. Also, other nations went out with the Am Israel. So definitely, we have a problem. And we see it development later on, also when they go into the desert. So why did God take them out of Egypt? Or why did they go out of Egypt if they don't believe in God? They did believe in God. They saw the miracles, but they also had these idol worshippers inside. We can also sometimes from one side keep the mitzvahs and do whatever we need to do for the other side. Okay, I will, it's not so terrible. I can do this, I can do that. And this is idol worshiping. For example, we today run after all those satisfaction, quick satisfaction. We have got no patience. It's like a few years ago, I wrote about it, that there is a test, it's called the Marshmallow Test. And what is this test? This scientist, he took psychologist, he took children the age of 4 or 5, I think, and he gave them, he showed them a big bowl of sweets, and he asked them to choose one of the sweets. And then he told them, you take this sweet, and you go into a room, and if you will stay in the room till I come into the room, it's going on not long time, and you will not touch the sweet, you will get another sweet. Nice. Now what happened? I think 80% of the kids ate the sweet. Some of them didn't even, the minute they went into the room, they just ate it and this it. Others were struggling against the temptation, but then they ate it. And those 20%, they had all those systems how not to eat this marshmallow or this sweet that they chose. So a few of them just covered their eyes, not to see it. Others were going around the room and talking to themselves in order to take their attention out of the sweet. And others licked the sweet but didn't eat it. And then, after, I think, 10 years or 20, I don't remember how, they checked what happened with those kids. What happened with those who couldn't, let's say, couldn't wait, and the temptation just, they needed now, and the satisfaction now. They couldn't delay, they couldn't wait for the satisfaction to come. What happened with them, and what happened with them that could wait? So the results were that, not everybody, yes, but generally speaking, all those who could stand against the temptation were very successful. And those who couldn't were not so successful. Interesting enough, I was looking in the internet and I found out that there is an idea that all this test was wrong. And they found out that the real thing that helps kids to be successful is the support that they get at home. And when I took all those tests together, I didn't came. The conclusion is very simple. Yes, if you can support your kids and lead them in the right way, and don't confront them with temptation that they don't need to be there, and you teach them to wait, that not everything happens right now. When you do this, your kids will be successful. In other words, this is a big lesson for us. Not everything that we want is good for us. And sometimes it's better to wait for something that you want, because then you will get it in the best way. Because when it's like for something, somebody is growing something in his yard, for example, a tomato, and he's got no patience to wait till the tomato is red. So he takes the tomato when it's green. He eats it. Stupid. He couldn't enjoy it. It's not good now. But if he would have waited a week, 2 weeks, he could eat a good, red, tasty tomato. And that's in a lot of things in life. And this is what we learn from Kodesh Baruch Hu, taking Am Yisrael not in the direct way that will put them in front of a temptation, that will put them in this test that maybe they will not have the power to stand there. And from the other side, we see that God, though they were still idol worshippers, if they had the will to go out of Egypt, as God said, this was already the first step and it was enough. But now we have to be careful. What do we do? The next step. So God takes them all around in order for them to go in the right way. Because in life, sometimes the short way is the long way, and the long way is the short way. That's a big lesson from what we see here. So many beautiful explanations of this. But one of the most interesting explanation is, I must take it, it's really unbelievable, and I think it's a big, big lesson. Chafetz Chaim says, when Am Yisrael were staying in Egypt, they agreed between them about a few things. One, they're not going to change what they wear, they're not going to change their language, and they're not going to change their names. But there was something else they decided, says the Chafetz Chaim, that they will do chesed. They will help each other. And now, as we know, only 20% went out, so it must be that they didn't exactly keep all of them, the language and the names and all the other things. But what says the Chafetz Chaim, what really saved them, what really hold them was chesed. Now, what chesed did they do? And I saw this, Rabbi Yitzchak Bernstein Zatzal, he brings it. It's unbelievable. When we look at the pasuk v'chamushim yatzu, as we said, v'chamushim is a few translation. It says Rashi 1 of 5, and chamushim also they are armed with arms. It's also chamushim, but we're not going to touch this now. We want to see how the interpreters of the Torah are really telling us what's the meaning of chamushim. So, Targum Yonatan ben Uziel. It's also somebody like the Onkelos that it translates, but the translation is really an explanation. And he says, "Ve'achazav Hashem yav'ama orach matbera diyam asuf ve'kol chad im chamisha taflim tzliku bnei Israel." So the Kodesh Baruch Hu took the people of Israel through a different way, and each one was with 5 children, or more than that, 5 children. What does it mean? Yes, let's look at the Targum Yerushalmi. It's also another Targum Yerushalmi. It says, "Mezainin ba'avodat hava." In other words, they were armed with good deeds. In the Perek Yud Bet, in the Pasuk 37 is written, ויסעו בני ישראל מרעמשי סוכותה, כ-600,000 רגלי, הגברים לבד מטף. So there were 600,000 men, except the taf, the children. Says the Targum Yonatan ben Uziel, bar mitafla chamsha lekol grava. This is except of 5 children to each man. And then says the Rabbi Bernstein, and brings the thought of Rabbi Yosef Tzvi Salan Zatzal, says, Zacharti la chesed ne'uraych. I remember the chesed that you did when you were young. And now, what chesed is he remember? What good deeds did they do? Let's take all the translations and put them together. As we say, only 1 of 5 went out of Egypt, which means that 80% stayed in Egypt. What's happening with their children? The children didn't die. This is the good deeds, the chamushim, that they were going with armed with good deeds. And what were the good deeds? As the Targum Yonatan ben Uziel says, that each one of them took 5 sets of children with him out of Egypt, of those who died in Egypt. Unbelievable how you see, like you take all those explanations and translation and you put them together and you have a beautiful story of chesed that Am Yisrael did when they went out of Egypt. And this is what saved Am Yisrael, the chesed. So those who died had children. So Am Yisrael, when they got out of Egypt, took those children and raised them as their own children. What a big thing to do. Olam chesed yibaneh. When you build the world, you build it with chesed, with good deeds, with mercy, with love. That's all the idea. And this is the big lesson that we have to learn. Children are our future. And one of the main reasons of Yetziat Mitzrayim is that we that we should tell the next generation, our children, what happened in Egypt. And as we said, things were not easy, but even with those who went out of Egypt and still had the idea of idol worshiping, they were also there with Am Yisrael. And the big lesson for us is not to put our children, also ourselves, in temptation that we don't need. God is testing us enough. We don't need to invent new tests. And understand that if we go in the way of God, even when a test comes, when troubles come, we can rely and trust God. And as more that we trust God, more God is going to help us. And when we transfer what we know to the next generation, we give them the power and the way to use the talent and the abilities that God in them in the right way. So sometimes we will not let them be tempted or confront them with temptation that we don't need. And if we do those things, then we achieve 2 things. Our children are going to go in our ways, and they also will use their abilities in the best way. When we give them the right tools, when we show them how God took out Am Yisrael out of Egypt, and how God was very careful not to go through dangerous zones, dangerous ways, and put up, sometimes you have to go all around and not confront the obstacle, not confront the temptation. And of course, as we say always, this is not a story. This is also for each one of us. This is the small Pharaoh inside of us that tries to convince us to go after our lust and be tempted and not waiting for satisfaction. We want right now, quick satisfaction, not more satisfaction, more joys of life, of the physical side. This is Pharaoh. So remember that God told us that we have to be very careful and try not to confront the problems. And if we confront them, put your mind into it. What is the right way to go? Remember all the miracles that God did. Remember what is the right way and what is the wrong way. וחמושים יצאו. Unfortunately, not everybody was saved. But those who were, they are Am Israel. This is this nation that nobody can destroy. It starts in Egypt, and we got out of it. And Bezrat Hashem, also what everything is going around us today, including the corona, and including the terrorists, including everything. We trust God. And sometimes we have to wait. We need the patience to wait for the Yeshua, for the Geula. And it will come, as long as we understand what is the right way to go and what is the wrong way. All the best for everybody.